Yo, what's up, everybody? We are back again with another episode of The Review. We are talking about our 9 ways to spark the creativity in your life. And my friend Mike here is back, and we're kind of pinging off each other. So the next episode will be one that Mike comes out and he kind of leads on that one. But for this one, I liked one of the most pivotal features about the book, The War of Art, was the fact that the unlived life. Resistance will bury you, right? Because it's one of those things where people always talk about the fact that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Like I don't necessarily know that you ever stay because life doesn't stay still. So if you're looking in comparison to somebody else's life or the goals that you wanted to, there's somebody else out there that's going and accomplishing goals, and I think that makes it really hard to develop as a person and to grow because you start kind of thinking that you kind of start thinking that the fact is that like you're kind of behind, right? And that kind of sucks, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I don't know. It's sometimes it's kind of like if you don't clean your room, right? Like it sounds like something simple, cleaning your room, making your bed, things like that, right? But pretty soon, if you don't clean your room, you're gonna have one thing. Now you got another thing out of place, right? Now you got clothes on the floor, right? Now you trip over something, you might knock the laptop, you know what I'm saying, onto the floor. You know what I mean? So these things continue to compound. But one thing that I did notice in my life was the fact that success also compounds, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, Mike, it's crazy, right? Like I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me that was the key to success, to just keep going and keep moving your legs? But then sometimes you realize like they don't even know. A lot of people believe that they got to the place that they were by pure luck, that they just happen to be in the right spot, which it
Hmm.
does happen that way, right? We were, as Americans, we were raised in a lot of places that we could go access food. Deploying to Africa had completely changed my mindset with a lot of things because I'm seeing a lot of locals. They are happy to have a contracting job on post for a contractor, right? And that, like, to them, that's beautiful. To a lot of Americans where we are, a lot of people are complaining. They're like, okay, well, we ain't got the right food. We don't have what we want. We don't, I'm bored. I'm tired. It's hot. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dog, you just made more in one day than this person's going to make in an entire year. Like, I'm like, let that sink in. Like, that's crazy. But once I started realizing that, you know, if it's your calling, you must keep going. And I started like thinking, I'm like, I start telling myself, what if I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning? At first it started with 5, but then I was like, what if I got up at 4? What if I got up at 3? What could I accomplish? Because what I start to figure out, Mike, is when you go into the office or you go into work, let's be honest, 30% of that day is actually spent. The 70%, a lot of times, is spent, spinning wheels, arguing, going back and forth, saying what's up. The coffee break becomes an hour, right?
Yeah.
Because you're excited for human experience, right? And so that was, I mean, for me, that was a major struggle. And I was like, and so my some of my coworkers, they might not like this, but when I go in, I got a set of headphones like these. They're wired, you know what I'm saying, and I plug them in and I lock in. I turn on some reggae beats or some lo-fi hip hop beats, and I go to work because by the end of the day, what I've noticed is I have my list of things and I start checking things off, and I make it a habit every time before I leave the office. I have my checklist of things that I can go back to the next day. And that changes a lot of things for me, Mike. Like I can't express how grateful I am for just the fact that figuring out compound interest helps you in your career and every point of your life, because I'm way less stressed when I leave work because I'm not thinking about work because I've pre-packaged it in that list.
Yes.
And that changes so many things. I don't know. So as far as resistance in your life, what are some things that you've had to do to, you know, unbury yourself and start in that compound way? Because over the last couple years, man, you've been on fire with the organization and everything. What were some things that you had in your way, or how did you navigate compound success, or going from compound failure to compound success?
Well, a lot of it. First off, shout out to the lo-fi beats, man. That's my stuff right there, dude. Especially when I'm studying, doing schoolwork, or I have to do a lot of writing, man. That's what I listen to. Also, I'm big on, man, when I'm at the house. not to get off track, but when I'm at the house, I wear my earbuds when I'm working all the time. So
Okay.
because people unintentionally will knock you off your track when you're in the middle of that. When you've got that flow going to get that
Whoa.
disrupted, you probably won't get it back. So you're either faced then with wasting a couple hours trying to get it back, or just moving on with your day. Which so we'll talk kind of about that later on. One of the things about this, you talk about the unlived life. I believe a gentleman you turned me on to a while back, a Les Brown. I heard him
Uh-huh.
talk about, and he was probably repeating somebody else's story, about laying on your deathbed, being surrounded by the ghost of all the things that you didn't do, all the dreams and the adventures you didn't take, and
Hmm.
they're like, you had an opportunity to give us life, and you gave in to resistance, and you chose not to. So now we're dead and we're ghosts even before you are.
Hmm.
So it's getting out there, making the most of those opportunities, keeping those legs going. Like you talk about, just keep grinding. Will Smith, I think, said, no, he's not very popular nowadays, but I think he said one time that nobody will ever beat him because he doesn't get off the treadmill. He doesn't
Man.
stop. He keeps on going. And as long as you keep on going, the thing about it is everybody else stops. So
Yes.
all of those people end up in your rearview mirror at some point,
Mike,
but
that's deep. That's deep, bro. Because when you talk about everybody else stopping, like that has become, one of the hardest, things to understand in life because I care so much about people, right? But I realize, when they say when you get on the airplane, right, put on your mask first, right?
yeah, you
The
got to
thing
save
about
yourself.
putting on your mask first is you got to take care of you to be able to facilitate to help somebody else. It might seem selfish for you to put on your mask first before the kid, but you got to make that happen so they know, hey, this is the standard, this is what we doing, and then you can help save their life.
Yep,
But if you don't get to a point where you're on the treadmill, nobody's gonna listen to you. People don't listen to people that aren't putting in the work. People really
absolutely.
don't, and that's the hard part is like realizing that it takes work to be able to help other people.
It does. Talking to young, and when I say young, I mean not as an age, but people just getting started into helping fields.
Uh-huh.
Talking to them about not stopping. Especially because we deal with a lot of people that come out of some very terrible circumstances. Most of them, about a year into their recovery, are very passionate about helping others, and they're hardcore about it. I mean, they're ready to give it 110%.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. But the thing about it is that the gatekeepers in the broad industry in the world, until you have a track record, until you have a reputation, they don't pay you a time of day. So most people encounter that resistance from the world around them and they give up. But what I
Yeah.
found, you talk about how did we do it? Well, we made it past a year and we kept going. We didn't focus on the haters, we focused on the people who were supporting us.
Okay.
And then the next year we hit 2 years, and by that time now we've got 2 years of saying what we're saying. It wasn't just 6 months and then petering out and fading away. We just kept grinding, man. And then so that's how that stuff builds. Like you follow Dave Ramsey, so you know about the debt snowball. You have to
Hmm.
keep working on it, man, to keep that thing building up, but it builds.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And yeah, and it's crazy because once you get through year one, it seems like all of a sudden here's you year two, three, four, because you kept building on that process. And I'm glad that you did address the fact that our youth sometimes gets a little bit confused, right? And it's hard getting to the point where you've built enough credibility. But one thing I want to tell our viewers before we end this episode is if you start building the credibility, the opportunities will come, and they will come
Absolutely.
in abundance. They will come in such an abundance to where you're going to have to say no to certain opportunities because they don't align with your vision. They
Yes.
don't align with your mission. And once you start saying no, sometimes people look, oh, it's a bad thing. You need to take all the opportunities you got. No, what you need to do is, we talked about this in the last episode, be intentional and know what opportunities are for you and understand the ramifications for that action. Because for every action, there is a reaction, right? You might have to sacrifice time, right, to get more money, or you might have to sacrifice money to get more time, or you might find a route that fuses both. But you looking at a family situation that's not optimal, right? So we talk about it all the time on the channel, here on the network, is making decisions and being intentional. And I just want y'all to know that it's okay to face the resistance. It's just not okay to let it bury you.
That's right.
And if you're gonna let it bury you in a positive manner, right? So where you can see what you're getting buried in. You come out and grow into, whatever tree, whatever plant, you know what I'm saying? Some aloe vera, you can help your community, right? And keep going, right? So anyway, we appreciate y'all. Keep tapping in. On our next episode, we're going to be talking about knowing yourself again and understanding how your environment influences your creativity, because we want you to thrive and grow in your next environment and environments that you go into in the future. So without further ado, this has been another episode of The Review. We appreciate y'all.